Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another edition of Creative Conversations with Dr. C. I'm hoping everybody is having a fantastic day. As always, these conversations are well needed conversations. And this conversation that we're having today with Miss Dr. Josiah Jackson is a well needed conversation. I met actually, Dr. Jackson at I'm having a brain fart, the National Black Book Festival in Houston a couple weeks ago, and she stopped by my table and we had a wonderful, wonderful conversation. So much that I invited her to this podcast. The conversation was so enlightening. It just brought, just joy to my heart to hear another educator talk so vivid about her experience as an educator, and which she'll talk about once we bring her on. But also just having the ability to, she gave me a lot of background as to why she was named what she was named. Josiah is a look for a female, but she'll be able to tell you that story once she comes on. But again, I am so grateful that she agreed to come on to Creative Conversations today to give us a little bit of background on who she is and what her purpose is. The title of this podcast is Maximizing Your Gifts While Staying Motivated. And as an educator, we always have to stay motivated to keep engagement with our students or whoever we're teaching at the time. So I don't want to keep you from, hearing her beautiful story. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Dr. Jackson on so that she can tell her story in her own words. Well, hello, Dr. Jackson. How are you?
I am doing great, Dr. Miller. I'm excited to be here. Josiah with fire.
Wow, I love it. I love it. The energy is just what we need today. Just what we need, especially with all the things that have happened since earlier part of this week. We
Yes.
definitely need to have that fire in our spirit to keep motivated. Explained to the audience just a moment ago that I met you at the National Black Book Festival in Houston a couple weeks ago, and you stopped by my table, and I am so grateful that you did, because we had such a wonderful, wonderful conversation. As like-minded, we are educators, so it sparked my mind to start thinking like, okay, she's an educator, what does she teach? And when you told me these different titles of these books, I was like, oh my God, only an educator will have such broad spectrums of having things that will say, let me give something to these kids to make them like, yeah, this is interesting. So I told the audience that you are an educator. So I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna zip it up as a teacher, zip it up, and I'm gonna let you tell the audience about Dr. Josiah Jackson.
Well, first of all, I know I had the conversation about my book, and even before we talk about my latest book, for me, it's always my first book, which is called God Called Her Josiah. I have to start there because throughout my whole life, even sometimes still now, people look at me as if Josiah. And that's sometimes at the stare, or and I can sometimes still see in their eyes they're wondering, who is Josiah? For many Christians who've heard the name Josiah, they quickly associate King Josiah, or they think of the King Josiah. Well, let me tell you my quick story, and I believe that's when we met. As I often do, I do share with people the snippet of that because I did write the book God Called Her Josiah. But briefly, I wrote the book after my mother passed. This was 28 years ago. I wrote it because I felt she was going to be the only one to validate me in my life going forward. And what I mean by that is, had she not passed, I would probably, always say, go call my mom. She can tell you, go call my mom. But as God would have it, and I say that because I do believe it was not just a prophetic sign, but also the way God wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
So the story briefly is my mother already had 3 boys and 2 girls, praying woman. And when I say praying woman, I mean a praying woman. Those Pentecostal, we were Church of God in Christ Incorporated, one of the biggest denominations right now, among other denominations. But Pentecostal woman who loved praying, loved the Lord. Her relationship with God was solid. She was one of the, a mother that spent her time praying in the word of God. So I say that because, today we have people who say, I'm a Christian, and that might be the end of that sentence, meaning they don't spend a lot of time in the word or time with God. So just briefly, at this time, she had 3 boys, 2 girls, and she was pregnant with me, and she didn't want to know the sex of the child. And so she told her doctor not to let her know. She was okay with whether it was a boy or a girl, but she didn't want to know. In the midst of her pregnancy, the Holy Ghost said to her, name your next child Josiah. Well, as a praying woman, right away she said, okay, all right, God, I'll do it. And she was excited. End of story. When you hear God say something, when you know it's God, you stop. You don't question. I mean, we can, and that's okay. But what she heard that day was so profound that she was okay with it. However, the human mind comes back to us. We start rethinking things that we've heard. And so she actually said a few months or weeks later, she said, well, God, what if it's a girl? But then right away, she said, but because you said name her Josiah, she was finished. That was it. End of story. Again, she thought about it. She said she even came up with a few female names. And I say female names just to, give the, I guess, difference of where we are today in our society. And, but she was okay with the name. While she was on her knees at noonday prayer, I mean, just hearing that alone. And I have to say, Dr. Miller, that might be my next book. While she was on her knees at prayer.
Oh, wow.
She went into labor. Now, I always have to stop the story and say, I was saying, it's time. It's time. She went into labor with me as the ladies were getting her off her knees. That's when the Holy Ghost said, name her Josiah. That was the first time she knew the sex of the child. So that was my birth. Interestingly, when I wrote the book, I was actually going to name it a woman named Josiah. And I had that for maybe weeks. I think I had it for a few weeks, and then I changed it to God called her Josiah. Here's what's so awesome. It didn't even hit me until I believe the book arrived, and I didn't even think a whole year later, when I looked at the name and I said, wow, that is so prophetic and so God, because that's exactly the words that came out of my mom, or at least the words that came out of her mouth. God called her Josiah, which is exactly, and when I say come out of my mom's mouth, that what the Holy Ghost said to her. So I always start with that. And I just believe my birth and my name and who I am is encompassed in what I do as an educator. And so I know we're going to go in that direction. On education, I've been teaching, or actually I've been in education because some years I was a parent advocate in the midst of my years, but I've been in education for 32 years and I love it. I love what I do. I love teaching children. My favorite age are 6-year-olds. Right now I'm teaching 8-year-olds, and that's okay. But I love teaching children. I love helping them grow, seeing their growth, and then helping their parents understand their growth. And so I just love empowering and giving families the help they need. And so I really believe a lot of who I am is encompassed around not only what I do in the church, but what I do. I work in a public school and even in community and with business. So I believe everything that I do is still wrapped around who God called me to be. And I just want to say, I know we mentioned briefly, even with what happened this week and where we're getting ready to go in America, it's time. Josiah with fire is coming out.
All right. I hear you. I'm loving it. I am loving your energy. I love to hear that positive push for our young children, and I would agree, as you said, your mom was a praying mom. I think a lot of times we miss that piece of it, right? We miss the piece of being obedient to God. She was obedient to God when he said, name her Josiah. So he already had something on you before you came. So I believe a lot of times right now we're in the midst, like you said, the earlier part of this week has allowed us to see a little bit of a difference of what America is going to be like. And so I think we need to come together and do a lot more praying and understanding what these next 4 years are going to look like. But besides that, let's get back on topic about what you do. So the educational piece is important. We have such young minds that are out here that need to have that backing, having that ability to have somebody to stand in the corner, not only for the children, but for the parents. So the parents can understand where to go, how to navigate through those years, especially when you say 6 and 7 and 8, all the way up into high school, even probably further than that into college. We need to have advocates like yourself to be able to steer them in the direction that they need to be steered in. So when we talked at the National Black Book Festival, we talked about the many books that you currently have, and as you said, the one that really sparked my interest, and I had to write them down because you got a few of them, and congratulations to you with all these different books that you have on your I say bookshelf. So the one that really caught my attention was "Come Get These Kids." And I just cracked up in my spirit, like, how many times have we said that? Come get these kids. But tell the audience why you named that your book that. Come get these kids.
Well, thank you for that. And exactly, this book was written in 2020, right after the shutdown. And I tell people I was working at a school. And interestingly, at this particular time, I was finishing my doctorate. And so I was actually subbing at a middle school. And in our middle schoolers need prayer. I'll just say it that way. Well, they all do, but our middle schoolers need prayer. And interestingly, what I was experiencing before this shutdown, young people talking back at the staff, the principal, they felt they were being rude, disrespectful. And it was so much going on. Honestly, I told people, I would say maybe it was either February, January, February, maybe. I just remember seeing this thinking, God, something has to happen. Now, I was amazed when March 15, 2020 came, because that was the day that schools shut down. And I believe everywhere, but that was the day we were told that we were not coming back to school. Well, during that time, once schools shut down, maybe a month later, I just remember thinking, I have this time now. What, because we didn't know if school was going to open again in April or May. Mm-hmm. And I remember at that time, I was not even thinking about writing a book. A friend of mine she also is an author, and she said, well, have you thought about writing a book? And I thought, not really, but I could. We have time. And so interestingly, May was when I started writing. And I was thinking of a title because, again, I was not thinking about writing a book. I was not, telling myself, because we didn't know how long this shutdown was going to happen. And but because it was brought up, I thought I could write a book. I have time. Even if it was a month, I had time. I started hearing from families that I knew, relatives, and families I had worked with in the past, having difficulty in that space, meaning now they were either at home, working from home, working remotely with their children at home. And interestingly, as I was hearing their comments, some of them were struggling, frustrated, stressed, all of that was happening all at the same time. And again, I was thinking of a name of the book. And I think out of the blue, because honestly, I look back and I think I don't even know what really sparked that phrase to come out. I think it just could have been because of the reactions and the mindset of the parents to that phrase, come get these kids. I remember saying it, writing it down, and I thought, okay, we can go with this. And I don't even think it really hit me until after I settled with that theme or that name, that yes, this is exactly what parents were really dealing with. And because I think by the end of maybe April was when I was getting it, but then at least getting the thoughts from parents and the situation happening to them. But I began writing in May. And I think that's when I started writing, it made sense. Come get these kids. So that was how it started. I think by the time I finished writing, it was making more sense that yes, parents were at this place where they were screaming, come get these children. I think teachers were also at the place of, yes, somebody come get these children before this happened. So it was
Mhm.
all playing its part. And so that was 4 years ago. Today, it's so amazing now that we're back in the building, or things have changed where families are still some are still struggling, some are doing
Mhm.
okay. But come get these kids. Interestingly, there is a message behind that. It's not just the phrase that we have said and latched onto, because everyone has at some point has said that,
Mhm.
but for both sides, parents
Mhm.
and teachers or staff working, whether you're working in a private school, parochial school, maybe a parochial in the sense of church school, charter school, even homeschool, and but now it's big. It's amazing how God gives you something and then later he starts building on it, because
Mhm.
again, at the beginning it was all about come get these kids, and I knew what I wrote in the sense of come get them by understanding how to help your child. That was where I was going with it, because parents needed help. But now, as I build on this brand and taking it forward, I'm so excited because I feel like come get these kids is more than just come get them. It's about educating families.
Mhm.
Now I'm taking it to this brand and extending it to helping parents to not just say, come get these children, but helping them understand how to raise a generation of excellence. And
Mm.
so I know, again, we mentioned briefly about, with the elections and what happened, but now it's time to just move forward and take it,
Mhm.
take it. I just want to say, take it in a way. And when I say take it, meaning we need to move forward and how we can help our families, help our children. And so as I'm moving forward with this theme, come get these, and it's not just a thing, because again, I branded it now. So it is come get these kids. And yes, not
Mhm.
only in speaking arenas, because I will be taking the topic on the road, speaking from pre-K to college, or and even adults, because again, there's a I want to say a message too for adults. Come get these adults.
Mhm.
So anyway, this come get these kids has it's I love it because it is people hear it, they laugh because we've heard it before.
Mhm.
And we typically, and I say typically, know what we're saying by at the times when your child's doing something and you're thinking, what? How are they? Why are they?
Mhm.
And when you're at that moment, and it's so funny because I have to say this because I was just in the airport the other day, and it's amazing again how I'm latching on to and owning this title. I saw this family. They were at the popcorn stand, and the children both had two children in a stroller, and all you heard was screaming, and both children were screaming. And I just thought, yes. I looked over at them, and I started to go up to them, but then they were calling for my, our flight to aboard. But when I saw that, I said, absolutely, because I could just see both parents looking like, why is everyone looking at us? And
Mhm.
you could just hear them saying, come get these kids. So it is I'm so thankful for God to have me not only write and use the title, but to brand it and to go further and move forward with it. So I'm excited about it. Again, it's about re-educating, it's about sharing and teaching a spirit of excellence.
Mhm.
Some parents, young parents, have not had I want to say the book. There are many parent books out there. Some
Mhm.
parents have not had that. They don't even have someone who could or have modeled to them about parenting. So come get these kids is certainly a way for our young parents to hear someone with wisdom that can guide them, teach them, and move them in a new direction of teaching. So I'm hoping to really just spark the nation. There we
Mhm.
go. With
Yeah.
the fire,
I hear
spark
you.
the nation and come get these kids to a level where we can see that wherever we are, no matter how frustrated or stressed you are as a parent, there is help to guide you. And not, even though the book is geared to parents who have children in the school system, it's also, I wrote a few pages about homeschool. So if you're a parent who's homeschooled, but it's bigger than that. it is bigger than that. It is helping our families take those children and go forward. We've
Mhm.
seen in the past few years, and the spirit, I said the spirit, the Bible even talks about, children being disobedient and children, not just being disobedient, being disobedient to their parents. And
Mhm.
so we see that, we've seen that. And so now with Come Get These Kids, I want to take it forward. Certainly reach the younger age group and move forward, or even take whatever age and give them that encouragement. We need hope right now. We need laughter. So yes, I love the laughter behind it, because we have to laugh.
Yeah.
Whatever profession you're in, and laugh doesn't mean we're laughing because it is something so humorous that it's wrong. It's part of our nature. And
Mhm.
so I want to Come Get These Kids and push it to a level of, yes, there is someone who believes in you, who can help, who can empower, who can educate you to be a better parent. And
Mhm.
so that's the direction that I'm taking it, and hoping, and amazing. We're in the fourth quarter, the end of this year, 2 months to go. So I'm excited about just getting that word out there. How do
Mhm.
we educate and do a better job of where we are? All schools are dealing with, the loss of children not being there. They're
Mhm.
dealing with, grades. They're dealing with so much. But the biggest thing I see, mental illness became a real huge issue in
Yeah.
many schools. And so we have time
Yeah.
to change that. As the world is, not just the world, but even in America, as things are changing, we,
Mhm.
we can take that mantle and run. We don't just have to sit and wait on someone else. So I'm excited that the fire put in me, the love put in me to do this. Now, granted, and I would just say this too, as we're talking about Come Get These Kids, you have to, and I'm that person, you have to have patience. And sometimes, though, I say this because sometimes I think I'm too patient, waiting on people to do things. But I just believe that that's what God instilled in me, the love and patience to work with families and bring them to a new level. And so I believe just that title alone, the book itself, that helps educate, but it would help families fill that void of the humor they need, then get empowered,
Mhm.
the
I think.
excitement, then becoming, get encouraged, the excitement, and then have someone teach and pray. See, and that's what I love about it. It's all of that together.
Mhm. I agree. I think we need some when we become parents, we don't have the tools or the resources to say, oh, here it is. But now as I have children that are grown, we are seeing much more resources out here for parents to be able to navigate these waters because they're choppy. You don't know what's going to come. So being able to have resources to be able to navigate and be able to talk their talk, you know what I'm saying? Be able to get to their level for them to understand exactly this is what's going to happen if you're in this grade. This is what you're going to see when you get here. These are the steps that you need to do to get here. These are the things that you need to do here to navigate this road here. This is the road that you need to go here. This is, we got to turn here. So being able to have all those different resources is a plus, because when I had my children, there was nothing like that out here. So it's very refreshing to hear and see the voice behind it to say, hey, it's over here. It's humorous, but it's going to allow you to see exactly what you need to do as a parent. But being as a parent, also understanding you have to collaborate with the teacher to be able to be successful for your child. Because if we're one off, then it's not going to go well. I cannot be solely doing this all by myself. There has to be a partnership in this, and a lot of times we miss that piece. We feel like when we drop our kids off at 7:30 or 7:45, that's your ownership. It's your kid. No, it's all of our kids. I was telling somebody in the last podcast that I did about we're missing out on that piece about a village, being able to raise these children as a village, being able to pour into them, and also understanding that these young children need to understand the level of respect, but also what they can give to their experience as they grow. So I thank you for having the tenacity and also listening to to God to say, hey, this is what needs to happen. This is what I need you to pour into people. And I gave you a little bit of a catchphrase to people, to have people to come to say, come get these kids is what I want you to put on the front of this book, so that they'll understand, yes, come get them, but I need you to come get them so that you can be prepared to work with them to get them to the next level. So I thank you for that. You were going to say something as a
While you were speaking, it just came to mind. You mentioned family, which is so important. And growing up, I grew up middle child of 11 children. And my parents both instilled in us not just the love of God, but how to love people, how to help people. And I tell people early on, it's amazing because even as you named this show, Maximizing Your Gifts, I remember, and you probably could remember yourself, maybe in high school or at some point when someone said to you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so I do want to say, and well, at least say now, when I was 6 years old, I wanted to be a teacher. Now, from that time, 6 years old till I believe high school, I think it was a sophomore in high school, there was no one who in between who said, this is what you need to do. I mean, my parents, because there were so many of us, they did tell us, we may not have the money to send you to college, but that doesn't mean you don't have to go. And so I had to, because you talk about the motivation. How did I stay motivated? All I can say, it was the gift God placed in me, the timing, the anointing of God. Mm-hmm. Because my mother, now she was a nurse, and when she started having children, she stopped to raise all of us. And so she was a home mom. And back then they was called homemakers. I think I mentioned that to someone one day, and they said, what's a homemaker? So she was a home mom. So she had time to raise us, and she didn't want anyone else. She said, God told her, these are your children, you raise them. And I have to say that because now looking at what I'm doing, not only in my profession, but then to continue helping families see that family is important. Being a mother is important, because we've seen that over these past 20 or so years that, yes, women may have children, but they're not mothers. And so we have to help our young women become mothers, those that have, and we know lots, there's so many issues behind maybe how they have those children, or just that whole piece on mothering. But I mention that because family is so important to me. It was important when I was young. So important, because again, I wanted to really go here. The motivation comes. Now, of my siblings, I was always an early riser, even at the age of 5 years old. My mom would, I hear her praying, and so I knew she was up, but I would get up, and between 5, actually it was about 5, because this is interesting. I would get up and leave the house and go to my neighbor's house, because I was determined to, talk or be in conversation. And I would go to my neighbor's house, and they were asleep. They would open the door, and they would say, we're all still in the bed, but they turn the TV on and say, you can watch Sesame Street until we get up. I was doing that at age 5. And so interestingly, as an adult, now that I see children, and especially I think there was a time where they're latchkey, and I think we still have some children who are latchkey. I don't know if they still use that term, but children who have to be there by themselves or with some, other guardian or adult. But that's what I was doing. So I feel like literally from not only my birth, but age 5, 6 years old, that I remember I was leaving the house to go to a neighbor's house. And it's somewhere along the way, because I look back now, my mom, I'm sure, knew. I didn't think she knew, but I was up around 6, 7 o'clock. I definitely remember 7 o'clock. I remember looking at the clock, seeing it was 7 o'clock that I was out the house. I'm still an early riser. I still get up. And so I'm saying that to say that's the passion I have behind what I do. It started then. It also started, not only did I, work with this or go to this family's house, but I saw children my age, and it would bother me seeing them either out late, or we lived by a park, see them come to a park by themselves, or just see them go through something. And I remember just at an early age, between now, maybe this time could have been 7, 8, surely 8 to maybe 12. And I just remember thinking, where are their parents? Where's their mom? How could
Mhm.
they be doing this? Because my mom wouldn't let me, my mom or dad, they would not let us do this. We couldn't stay out late. We couldn't just go outside, do what we wanted. And so it was always there in my mind, who's taking care of these children? Now, because I'm a middle child, I had to take care of my younger siblings. And so my mom was still preparing me to also, be that caring person. She would take my sister and I to homes to help clean people's houses. And so all of this was instilled in me. And like I think you mentioned that we don't see that anymore. We don't have that. I
Mhm.
believe we do. So I don't necessarily say we don't. It's just there. We don't see it enough or hear it enough. But that was instilled in me. And so now I feel like I think there's a phrase, sometimes people say I'm becoming my mom. So I feel like, I mean, even when she passed, I felt I took the mantle and took up what her ministry was.
Mhm.
And so yes, going forward with this, come get these kids and taking it to that next level, to people, that's what they'll see. They'll see that genuineness of who I am. And I say that because today we're in a world of so many people, whether they're in front of the screen or behind the screen, and they have that term being fake. Oh no, you're
Mhm.
going to see the genuineness of who I am,
Right.
because I love being with people, helping people. I think one time I said to myself, I feel like the person who just loves to put the band-aid on people. I just want to put the band-aid on you to heal you. Which interestingly, it's a good segue because I didn't mention that Josiah means the fire of the Lord. So I'm just at a place in my life where everything is coming to place. And as we say, when the shoe fits, you wear it. So I
Mhm.
just say Josiah is wearing the shoe. I've always worn it, but and maybe because I was younger, maybe the shoe was a little big, but now the
Mhm.
shoe is
If it's right,
fits.
it's
It
right. If
fits.
it's
So
exactly.
when
I
you
think.
mentioned family, I had to come back to mention that because even my throughout my whole teaching career, family was, I'm that teacher that go make I still make home visits.
Mhm.
I even have children, when I say that, they look at me, what do you mean? You come to my house? I said, I do.
Mhm.
I still make home visits, calls,
Yeah.
because it's important to connect, the communication. It's important to encourage the parents who need that encouragement,
Right.
and wherever they are. So,
I think it's important that we're able to meet them where they are, and being able to put a little bit of, as they say, old school in the mix. It doesn't hurt any, because when you have somebody that says you come into my home, typically they're like, "What you coming to my home for?" No, I'm coming because I love you enough to come to you, meet you where you are. Because if not, then I don't know where you might be. So again, I think just having the ability to work with families and being able to put that twist on, and say, hey, I'm here to assist you to get you as well as your child to the next level is so impressive, because a lot of times we don't have teachers like that anymore, that invest in wanting to see these children get to the next level. It's all about, you don't pay me enough, which we don't get paid enough, which is another story. But if our desire is to make a difference, then the money is going to come. And so I think, again, I've said on many podcasts, it's we don't get the accolades that we deserve. Um, as we speak about family, I just wanted to mention as well too. You said you've been doing teaching for 32 years. Just this past weekend, I had the opportunity to spend time with family. And during that time, we actually had 4 people in our family to retire. And one of those was an educator, which is my aunt, Denziola Johnson, who did 42 years of education. So kudos to you, as well as to her, as well as to the other family members that also retired, whether it be through law enforcement, which is my sister Patrice, my uncle Fred, who did postal service, as well as my aunt Peggy, Peggy Howard, who is actually a pediatrician who did 45 years of service. So Just having the ability to see all that in action, but also playing kudos to you as an educator is so far in between. We don't give enough respect and enough kudos to those people who are battling this stuff, because we have a different generation of kids these days that are in these schools, totally different than what I'm used to. um, as being raised, when I was being raised up, it was nothing for the neighbor next door to come up behind you and ask you what you're doing, and it wasn't a back talk. It was you had respect for them. And so it's a little bit different nowadays when we're talking about these kids that are in not saying that all of them are like that, but having these children that are in these schools, especially since we've had COVID. And I keep telling people, COVID is not gone. COVID is still rampant. We just happen to be back in the building, but it's still there. But I think the shutdown caused so many different avenues that we had to navigate through. You touched on mental health, a big piece of that, because now you don't have the engagement. And it sounds like I would love to have been in your classroom, sitting and just being poured into because of your animation of and your drive of being a teacher. Then all of a sudden, now that's gone. Then what do we do? Then we got this seeping thing we call mental health. People are now depressed. People are now trying to figure out how they're going to navigate through going to the store. Even education, what does that look like for me? And so I think a lot of times we need to put ourselves in a position where we're now not forgetting that COVID is there, but finding avenues to keep these kids still engaged, but as you said, keeping the parents engaged as well too.
Absolutely. And you mentioned again with the family, again, I was raised the same way. Someone next door, the neighbor can, when we were doing something wrong, they didn't just say, I'm going to tell, your mom and dad. They were able to discipline us,
Yeah.
And, so yes, I still grew up, and I'm so glad. I look back and I think, yes, I'm so glad I was a part of that ending of that
Mhm.
era coming, because wow, when I started teaching, I would say this. I remember my third year teaching, and it was April, and I had a parent say, do you have the camp registration, the applications for camp? And I thought they were very persistent and wanted it. And I thought, why do they, I understand you wanted to send your child to camp, but I mean, they were asking as if I need it. If I don't get it,
Mhm.
something was not that it was going to happen with the child, but what they wanted was to get rid of, put their child somewhere for the summer so they can have their time. And I
Mhm.
remember thinking, wow, you know, they're trying to get rid of their child during the summer, and wasn't just send them to camp so they can enjoy fun. And so then I look back at my upbringing, and with my upbringing, my mom had Bible study. So I tell people wherever I go, my siblings and I, it was Bible study 365 days a year during the summer. She was so excited during the summer. And so I believe all of that still instilled in me to continue showing that love and again that patience with people. And again, going forward, here's what I like. We spent time, come to get these kids. It's not just for parents, but you mentioned even the burnout of teachers, the burnout, and you mentioned even some of your family members in other professions who are retiring. It seems like more and more people are ready to retire because of what
Mhm.
is happening with being where they are. I'm looking at, and I'm sure you see this too. You go to some of these, whether it's fast food place, and I'll use that's probably a quicker example. Some of the young people that work there, they have an attitude. They don't want to work. There's no work ethic. And
Mm.
so I'm hoping to take this message, because come get these kids. It's not, to me, it's more than a phrase now.
Right.
It's a message. It's a mission to
Mhm.
get people back, and I don't want to say back on track, to get people in a place that wherever you are distressed and tired, when you just immediately hear that phrase, you just feel lifted for, even if it's for a moment,
Mhm.
that's still exciting. So it's not just for the parent, but the teaching staff, the principals, everyone in education, because education right now, I mean, everyone who is in education right now, they are feeling burnt out. They're feeling tired.
Mhm.
So many, there are increased situations happening that are making them feel, Do I need to stay? I mean,
Mhm.
it's so interesting. Even since COVID, many people each year, somebody else decides, well, I may retire. Yeah, I did, say to myself another 5 or 6 years, but next
Mhm.
year, they're bumping
Next,
it
yeah,
up.
next year. Sounds good
So
to me.
right, exactly. So they're saying, I'm coming out now instead of waiting, to whatever age they had planned or whatever they planned, because it's so much. And so
Mhm.
I'm hoping the message of come get these kids, even though it's to encourage parents, but it's to encourage the school staff as well.
Right.
Whoever works with children, and you don't have to be in a school, but daycares, churches, there's churches who have children's church, hoping
Mhm.
that this message, again, it's a mission. It's going beyond just come get these kids as a phrase you say. And yes, it is comical. I'm glad it is, because that really breaks the ice
Mhm.
for so many people who have heard it. And so, I'm hoping to just take this mission to the next level, to inspire, encourage, bring back the joy, because we need joy.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
after, this week and all that happened, we need
Mhm.
joy.
Yeah,
and
we do.
and, and I know it's out there, but there are people who don't know, who don't have it. They're not around someone like that.
Right.
We often think of just people in the city, but I say, what about the people who live way out, further
They
away
need it
from the
too.
city?
They need it too. Everybody
Exactly.
needs it. I think
Exactly.
we all need a drop of it. You know, I
Exactly.
think that's the big piece of it. I think we're missing that piece of it. I think once we get that piece, the train will start moving, in the right direction. And again, when you talk about burnout, it's not just teacher. It's across the board for a lot more industries that are out here. So again, kudos to you to be able to have the tenacity to brand this and let people know that this is out here. Do you have a picture of the book by chance?
I do. Let me show you the book. So I have a book, and I also have products I put on my website. So hopefully we'll talk about that.
We will
Let's
talk about that, definitely.
see. Can you see that? That's come get
Uh-huh.
these
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. Yes. So
kids.
where I believe what's the websites that you
So,
can let the audience know where you can get that book at?
so the website is Josiah Jackson, but I spelled it. I had to change the spelling because I have a couple of sites with my name.
Mhm.
So it's JO and then hyphen, then
Mhm.
SIAH Jackson.org. So you have to make sure you get the hyphen. You'll still, even if you pull up JosiahJackson.org, I believe there's still a icon, because you can get the book on Amazon. But
Mhm.
I want people to go to the one that has the hyphen, so JO hyphen, and I'm working on getting that changed. But again,
I
you know
think
how they say when you get a website, you want to try to get everything with your name.
exactly. So like I think I'm gonna show it just to make sure so
Oh,
that people can
absolutely.
see that. Is that correct?
So put a yes, yes, yep, I see it exactly. Yes, that's it.
Okay. So
That's it.
if you're listening to this podcast, please go out to this website and get these books. Books are great. Again, it's not just for educators, it's for everybody. It's for everybody who is looking to get down that path or get in that right lane, to be able to, I say, get a little bit of comical relief, but also get some education behind it as well too. Come get these kids. That in itself sparked the conversation. So if it was comical to me, I can quite sure it's going to be comical to somebody else. So again, this is the website that you can pick up Dr. Josiah Jackson's books at. Again, she has multiple books out here. The first one is God Called Her Josiah. Again, God Called Her Josiah is one of those books. And then again, Come Get These Kids, A Parent's Guide to Navigating the School System. And then the last one, A Leap of Faith, A Prayer Journal. Do you have copies of any of those, Dr. Jackson, so that we can
I do.
show?
So this is the first copy of God Called Her Josiah, and they look similar. So it's the first copy, and then I
Hmm.
did a second edition. I just really changed the I think a chapter for
Hmm.
the. They look very similar, but
Okay.
people can still get both. But
Mhm.
and then Leap of Faith. And so that was, even the time I wrote this one, I had, so after my first book, people were asking me how to write a book and the length of it. So really the leap of faith I put it in the form of a book to encourage people who want to write their book. So they could even model after, oh, this is how many pages I need. Because again, people would say, I want to write a book, but I don't know what to say or if I have enough information. And
Mhm.
so really the prayer journal, it's still a prayer journal. It's in the form of a book. So it gives you an idea that that could be your book. And so
Mhm.
that's really where that idea came from. And then, of course, leap of faith certainly is, there are many moments in our life we have to take a leap of faith. But I just want to preface on saying, come get these kids again. It's still even moving towards come get these adults.
Mhm.
So I love the fact that it's going to, you're going to see it moving um, by either the end of this month or certainly next year to 2025. It's all about come get and moving forward with,
Mhm.
not just come get these children, but come get these adults too.
Mhm. I love it. I love it. I think too, what I've gotten out of just listening to your conversation, Dr. Jackson, today is we cannot afford to be stagnant in this time and day and time and age. We just can't. We don't have the ability nor the bandwidth to be stagnant. We have to have some way of motivating ourselves to keep moving, to keep being positive, to keep being engaged in what the next step is going to be for us. Again, we touched a little bit on what this week has brought us. So more than ever, we have to stay motivated. So again, as we talked about this topic today, being able to maximize your gifts while staying motivated, we have to have something that is going to keep our attention, but keep us motivated, but keep us encouraged to encourage the next person. So again, these books that you've talked about today on today's podcast, again, God called her Josiah. Come get these kids, and a leap of faith is allowing us to continue to really to pour into ourselves, but pour into the next person to keep them motivated. And as an educator of 32 years, maximizing your gifts to keep your students motivated, keeping their parents motivated, to allowing them to see the gifts within them because somebody saw a gift in you, and now you're pouring it into the next generation. This is what we need to do. We need to make sure that we're able to do that because the next generation is depending on us. And if we're not willing to release those gifts for them, they will be lost. So, again, kudos to you, Dr. Jackson, for allowing us to see what your gifts are and how you're motivating this next generation of children and their parents. And as you say, I'm going to say it and I'm going to speak it into existence that next book is going to say, come get these adults with these kids. So we're going to speak that into existence to know that that's going to be the next one coming down the pipeline for you, Dr. Josiah Jackson. So again, can you tell the audience where they can get these books outside of we showed your website, but where else can they get them? I thought you said Amazon. And what else platform? What other platform?
Right. Yeah. So right now, my website and Amazon are the main two places they can go,
Okay.
and they'll see all of the books. Again, my website has two, but they can, those are the main places they can go and get those books. So, and I thank you for having me here today too. I'm just excited about
I am
moving. I'm
excited
excited
too.
about what's next.
What's next? So what we'll talk a little bit briefly afterwards. I really want to put this information on my website, which is allurepublishing.net. Outside of me doing these podcasts, I am a publisher as well, and that's where we kind of met at the National Black Book Festival at my table as being a publisher. But I want to be able to put this out onto my webpage so that people can see that that this is something out here that is going to benefit them to be able to navigate the school system, because there's so much going on in the school system these days, so allowing them to have the ability to have a avenue to, if they pop on my page, they can see a little insert to say, hey, podcast, here's her information, and this is what I will do once this podcast ends. I will upload that information onto allurepublishing.net. so that they'll have another platform to be able to see this podcast, but also be able to find another avenue to get your books as well too. Again, it's all about empowering each other, being able to stand in the gap for one another. And I always tell people there's enough room at the table for us all to eat. So I will make sure that I put this information out onto my website, again, allurepublishing.net, along with this podcast to link the where they can get the books as well too. So tell the audience what's what's coming next for you, Dr. Jackson, in the next couple of months. I know we're preparing for Thanksgiving and Christmas, but tell the audience what's next for you.
Well, I even with the book, I've started the topic. So I've already been invited to speak about this topic. And so that's really what's coming next, really just speaking about it. Again, even though the book says it's a parent's guide to navigating the school system, it goes beyond the school system. So I don't want people to see that and just say, well, I homeschool my child, or my children are in college. There's still some, good information that can benefit you. But I believe what's next is taking it on the road, taking this message on the road. And what I love is the message is both spiritual and natural. It's for your soul. It's for that person who needs to hear it. And because we are getting ready to move into this other season in America with the new president, it certainly is a way to bring back the excellence of who we are.
I agree.
And to share with parents to whatever direction you were going. Now you can pivot and do better. We're always, I'm still working to do better. I hope we're all, want to do better. So what's happening for me next is taking this message on the road to share, and not just at schools, but to share in churches, to share in communities, to share with everyone who needs to hear. It's not just about, again, we kids may be the word, but again, adults. Because there are many wayward adults who are not listening and being disobedient and doing everything left. But again, it's about taking this message. And again, it's not just the title of a book. It is a message to the world, to others, to families that have children in daycare. And it's about supporting them. So for me, it's a mission. So I believe next is taking this on the road, sharing not only this book, but who I am, so people can see what God has in store for me and for them as I approach them in several cities. So that's what's next for me. Besides writing the book, it is so funny because I already have someone asking me to write a sequel to this, and with so much time, so much. But I
would love to, once you figure out where that next city is going to be, please let me know so that I can make sure that I'm a part of pushing that information out to people. I was just talking to a friend of mine not too long ago, probably earlier part of today. We talked about, making different concessions to doing different things in the new year 2025. And one of those things was being able to be more visible for people to come and have open conversations in person. So that, I think we miss out on that, being able to have that human feel to conversations. Is always either on a podcast or a Zoom. It's not really always in person. So having that ability to do something in person, to have people to come and do now these meet and greets and book signings, and having these open conversations about their conversations, about their books, and having it in a conversational piece is what we're missing. And so my goal in 2025 is to kind of open up those doors again for people to be able to sit down and have conversations with those authors, and kind of get really personal in front of it, to say, hey, tell me exactly what you were feeling and why did you go into this direction. And so having that ability is what I'm looking to do in 2025, and will love to sit down again with you to kind of talk about what that looks like for you. And maybe we can collaborate with something down the line in 2025 as well too. But before I end this podcast, and even though I don't, we've had such enlightening conversations today about such important things when we're talking about education and about the next generation and about family, about mental health, about engagement, about staying motivated, about staying true to your purpose and your gifts that God has poured into you. So we've talked so much today about some very, very, very good topics. And again, hopefully, this is not our last topic of conversation, that you will be back on Creative Conversations with Dr. C. Again, I'm going to put up your website so that people can know where to get your books. As well as Dr. Jackson mentioned, she is looking to go on the road to spread this message as we talk about come get these kids. And We are looking forward to seeing what 2025 is going to look like for you. And I'm excited about 2025 for you. Do you have any parting words that you want to say before we close out this beautiful conversation today?
Well, I just want to say thank you again for having me on today to share with everyone what God has done for me. And again, it's about giving back. And so I'm so excited to be giving back, not just the conversation we had today. So much like you, I love how we touched on so many different topics. And so hopefully, whether people are watching now or later, all I want to end with is come get these kids.
I love the energy. Oh my goodness, I love the energy. If you can just push all that energy out to these people in YouTube land or wherever they're looking at it, we need this energy. We need to have this 1,000% energy as we move forward into this new week, into this new year that's coming. We're right almost at 2025. So we definitely need this energy. I felt the energy when we start talking last month. I can't believe I'm saying last month. Last month when we talked, the same energy that I felt then, I feel it now. And I tell you, it is amazing. Amazing. If you were down and out, say it again, Dr. Jackson. Come what?
Come get these
That's what I'm
kids.
talking about. She said, come get these kids. And again, y'all be looking out for her next book. Come get these adults with these children. That's the next one. So we are excited about 2025 for you, Dr. Jackson. And I know that God is going to continue to move you in the direction that needs to be moved in, and that you're going to pick up the baton and pass it on to the next person, because we need to hear this message. We need to understand that we have gifts that have been poured into us, and that we need to release them to the people that need them. And so I think the day that we met, it was not by coincidence. It was because it was supposed to be. So I thank you for taking your time today to just sit down and have a conversation with little old me, Dr. C, just talking about come get these kids, and about, again, maximizing your gifts and how to stay motivated. This is important. And again, as I've always said, and as we end this podcast, I always tell people, please be good to one another. Please check on those people who we think are strong, because the strong ones need to be checked on too. Mental health is not a joke. People are suffering in silence, which they don't need to be. So check on those strong people, because they do need to be checked on. Continue to tell people you love them, keep encouraging them, keep uplifting them, and keep letting them know that you're here to support them. As always, it is going to be a phenomenal upcoming week. So always stand in power and purpose. And until next time, my good people, have a good one. Take care and be blessed.